So guys, at any moment now, we can start the pullback, right? This is a very important trend to have on your Bitcoin chart right now, as we have had a bounce from 59,000 up to 64,000, but we are slowly creeping our way to the upside. And you can see we have a really good trend line that's tracking this movement to the upside. Now, once we break this trend, means we need to get our heads around another pullback. We know now when it comes to the weekly time frame, this was not the best close we saw last week, and we never got the buying power we wanted to see, which means automatically we need to think about more downside. Now, in this show specifically, I want to speak around 5 to 6 altcoins that we need to prepare for strong levels. They're altcoins that have performed really good this year, and now we're getting them at really strong levels. As what I'm seeing is, yes, we could see a lower low within Bitcoin, but the Bitcoin dominance is showing me weakness, which means it's very likely to see a higher low within altcoins. And I'm personally going to be buying 5 altcoins on the next pullback. I also want to show you guys a very strong high time frame signal that's telling me that when we're ready to bounce, it's going to be a big one. So guys, smash up the like button and let's go.
I try and help everyone in my space, and this is what I get. I try and fight the devils, but inside I'm just like sniper. Welcome to Sheldon Show.
Alrighty fam, let's jump straight into it. Okay, so the important thing that I want to show you guys here is I want to show you this high time frame. Let's bring it up. Here we go. This high time frame signal that we must pay attention to, right? And it's very important because what we're seeing here, and let's make this a little bit clearer here for a second, just so that you can see it nicely. Okay, let's remove that. It's the relative strength index, and it's specifically high time frame. Now, this is important because what it basically tells us, right, is there is something we're not seeing. You're seeing something on the actual chart, but you're not seeing the actual momentum that's in play, right? And what we are starting to see here is if you look at the chart direct, you're seeing a lower low within Bitcoin, okay, but you're seeing a higher low within the RSI. And this is something called divergence. Now, it's very important to know this, okay, because this has been a fast reversal signal in the past, right? This time over here, we had a little higher low in the RSI, lower low on price. It actually marked the bottom and we ended up a strong rally, right? This time over here, right, we had a higher high in price, right, a lower low in RSI, and it sparked a massive rally, right? If we look at this time over here, we saw a lower high over here and we saw a higher high when it came to the RSI. We saw a massive rally. Right? So what we are getting here is we're getting the same signals of a divergence. Now, we know we're at a critical level with Bitcoin where we're separating ourselves from here and $40,000, right? Both of them are valid right now to possibly marking around the bottom of the cycle, right? We have this one over here, which is a very big Fibonacci point, right? You take the major fib all the way from the top, it's 618, right? The best Fibonacci that we want to see a bounce on, okay? And it's a healthy one. Then what you have is the 786. That if we don't hold these levels, yes, we do need to brace ourselves for the 40,000, right? So these are the two big zones. But I don't want to speak too much around that. I want to speak around why it is possible we could see a bounce on the next pull to the downside. This candle is showing continuation down, and very likely at some point we come and fill this wick we created last week, if not possibly lower. Now the 618 is sitting between $57,000 and $58,000, right? So it's slightly lower down than where we've seen. We have seen bullish divergence on the weekly, and we could see a nice, strong reactive bounce from these zones, which gets me to the point of what my thoughts are with Bitcoin right now. Now, again, I evaluate a few things. The first thing I look at is where is liquidity right now? And look what's quite interesting. If you look at the short time frame, there's a bunch of liquidity sitting above 64,000. Now, in the last 24 hours, we've tapped 64 twice, okay? And you can see what it's starting to create is liquidity here. Right? Which means at some point, it's very likely price wants to spike up, hit that liquidity, okay? And then what's interesting, as we start to zoom out to the 48-hour, just get to the 48 over here, you can see the liquidity sitting at the downside, okay? So super short time frame, but liquidity on the upside. A little bit mid time frame, liquidity at the downside. Now we got higher time frame, okay? And we can look at where liquidity is sitting over here now. Okay, and you can see we are starting to form big liquidity blocks. Look at this. Look how much liquidity is now sitting at 75,000. Right, so this information starts to paint a little bit of a story for me. Okay, so here's the first play that I'm looking at. I'm still quite in the mode of a new low is coming. Right, but when it comes to the midterm price action, I have this bottom trend. This trend for me is telling me, hey, this is where I'm seeing price shoot to, above 64, anywhere up to 66,000. This is a big zone I see price moving up to, and then starting this downfall push over here. And this trend kind of backs that. This trend is the one to say, hey, that is for me to stick to that major game plan. Therefore, when I look at the trades that I have, right, and the setups that I'm in, but I'm still holding some longs that we took at the bottom, right? And again, my goal here is to pass funded accounts, right? I need one more push up to pass, right? And then I have a bunch of liquidity, right, in a market that's nice and cheap, okay? But nonetheless, over here, now I do have these in play, but I'm tracking my stop losses below. So right now, my stop loss is at 62,000, right? We break this trend, we've got to get ready for that pullback at any point, okay? So this trend helps me validate buys that I possibly took, okay? As well as, hey, don't pre-jump the market too early, right? At any point, we could see some more downside, okay? So this kind of marks it off here. But for as long as we hold that trend, I am looking at a push up to these areas over here, and then I'm looking at downside. Now, where I'm looking for downside is for now when it comes to Bitcoin itself, I am looking at a slightly lower low, right? Come down to that big 618, really shake out the market over here, right? Many have possibly longed in this area, or as we started bouncing or longing now, ton of liquidity and stop losses are sitting below this 59,000, as well as the high time frame is telling us a ton of support. Right, so this is a big zone that for me, the plays right now is this, drop, bounce up, right? And then I do think we could possibly make our way to those late 70,000s. So again, short-term liquidity is up here. Mid-term liquidity is down here, right? Higher time frame liquidity is up here, right? And that's what kind of gets me to the idea that the chart's kind of lining with the liquidity right now and giving me the plan that I'm looking for to understand what to do right now. Okay, then, when it comes to next, if we start breaking this, we start the pullback, guys. So we must keep that in mind, right? There is some liquidity sitting over here. And if we do start pulling back, it's just going to create more and more and more liquidity in the zone. Okay, the bullish divergence is telling us a strong bounce, right? And what we also want to see on the bounce, we want to see a volume spike. We need to see some real volume. We need to see a real bounce happen, which means very likely to be a fast bounce when we are ready. To turn very bearish, like I said previously, we got to close below and hover here for a little while below this 58, 57,000. Then I start looking at 40,000s. Okay, now I want to get to the special one, which is the altcoins. All right, altcoins are gaining strength. Okay, and I want to show you guys this in the Bitcoin dominance. So this chart is something that I showed you guys yesterday, and we were actually pumping into this resistance. Remember that dominance actually lost a big trend, right, a week or two ago. So even though we saw the Bitcoin dump, it was very much a Bitcoin catch-up. Now, not only was it a short-term catch-up, high time frame, it's really started to turn this dominance down. And now we are breaking a weekly trend. Therefore, dominance could actually start trickling its way down to the downside, right, of anywhere up to 54%, which means that any bounces that possibly come in the next week or two, right, could be strong bounces in altcoins, but as well as Bitcoin suffering a little bit more than alts, okay, which gets me to the point of us possibly having a higher low within altcoins. So even though I'm looking at Bitcoin go slightly lower down, we could be seeing a higher low in alts, right? And then a nice bounce off. So if we look at this over here, this is where altcoins are sitting now in the midterm. They are being controlled by the bears in this area here. And just above is another area of where bears are holding. So right now, it's quite clear bearish is still the side to be being on, right? But also knowing when do we flip bullish, right? We flip bullish once we get above this side over here. This is when we start saying, okay, real vibes happening, we can start moving. Now, what's important with that information is for us to look at the time frame, right? This could take anywhere up to 2 months, guys. And the more I analyze the charts and I look at things, right, the more it's telling me towards August, September is when we can really start seeing a move up. But at that time, you're going to see a very oversold monthly, which means we could actually have 6 months of really good strength within the market, right? Really get back to the market showing strength again. So time-wise, you've got to keep that in mind. Now, this doesn't mean that they aren't trades, right? It just means that when it comes to the high time frame view of those big moves, right, there's a bit of time for the market to chop around, okay? As well as knowing that at the bottom range is where we accumulate. Now, what's very likely to happen when we do get a possible bottom, right, is we have had the first drop, we've now come here, and there's going to be a certain point where it's either a lower low, right, or a higher low. We're going to have a strong bounce, and then it's very likely we're going to chop. Okay, but the good chances here is this chop is probably not likely to go as low as the first drop, right? That first drop is always usually the immediate drop that really shakes the market out, Okay, and we tend to not really come back to those areas, which means that this is a place here to just pay attention on really buying good blue chips in the market. Start preparing yourself for the next cycle. Even though we're knowing that there's up to 2 months of market possibly chopping around, okay, it's important to start thinking about the next cycle and start placing your bets, right? So when this big drop happens, and why I'm telling you guys this right now, and why I'm focusing on buying some altcoins on this next dip off, is because these big drops in the beginning can also not be tested later on, okay? And that's something to pay attention to. So when it comes here to alts, my plays right now, okay, again, short time frame, a little bit higher up, right? Drop higher low, and then we push up to these areas here. And this is very likely where we can sit around and chop around for some time, right? So that for me is my play when it comes to alts. Some will make new lows. Now, the new low ones are major alts right now. Because this dominance is dropping, okay, and because this Ethereum dominance is dropping, okay, it means that these big hits that are happening now are coming for the larger market caps. It means we're actually getting a high market cap pullback now, and money's being drained from the high major alts, right? So things like Ethereum, things like Solana, and things like Bitcoin are the ones probably likely to make new lows on the next drop-off, okay? Which gets me to a very interesting point. If we look at top 5 alts that we really want to accumulate for the long term, right, I think those 3 are very much fall under the category, okay? So it's not often that these could be weaker than the rest of the market, right, that we actually get an opportunity to be buying them, okay? So those are 3 big ones that I want to speak around, okay, when it comes to buying up, because I do think new lows are possible for them. And I do think the rest of the altcoin markets, there's a lot of alts that are going to put in higher lows and start to push up. I don't think this is very much a drainage of the smaller cap altcoins. I think they've been drained a lot over the last couple of months, okay? Which gets me to this point over here. So again, let's look at ETH dominance for a sec, right? ETH dominance, right, is on its way down, okay? And there's big support incoming, right? This is what I'm saying, ETH can get very cheap, right? There's still a good 7% of ETH dominance, which means altcoins overall is very likely to outperform ETH, right? So if alts are making higher lows, alts should hold a little bit better, right? ETH very likely to make a new low, okay? But then after that, we should come into really good strength for ETH over the next couple of months. Really start pushing up again, right? This is a big Fibonacci level over here, very oversold when it comes to high time frame. So ETH for me, I got to pay attention to the special that is coming here, and knowing that high time frame, we should actually start seeing strength, which gets me to the ETH to the Bitcoin chart, right? ETH Bitcoin, right, tracking Ethereum against Bitcoin, not USDT, right, is coming straight into this big golden zone. We always speak around the 618 and the 786 Fibonacci's, and specifically we're on the monthly and weekly now, right? We are in this zone here, which means that yes, even Bitcoin is very likely to outperform ETH for a little while longer. But then we are looking at a nice return of ETH at some point, okay? And we should actually really see ETH possibly be a slight leader in the next cycle to the upside, right? So let's go now and look at ETH. Here are my plays on ETH right now. Now there's 1 or 2 scary scenarios. I'm going to say it straight up now. If Bitcoin goes to 40,000, ETH going to $900, which I think is an incredible buy if that happens. But we're not confirmed that Bitcoin's going down to 40 just yet, which gets me to the next point of ETH actually coming back down to this $1,400 to $1,500 zone, right? It is a new low for me, and this is kind of the plays of what I'm looking for. ETH also has a similar trend to Bitcoin, so it's a little warning sign of where that pullback can start, okay? But I'm really paying attention for a nice little sinking ETH here, might even exaggerate a little bit, right? And then have a nice strong back push up over here, right? So this is a token that I'm very much accumulating and paying attention to. Right, Solana is the next big one, right? Sol bounce, really not convincing, right? Not a great bounce right now, right? If you look at the difference between a Zcash bounce, the difference between an injective bounce, a near protocol bounce, right? They're looking a lot stronger than a little Solana bounce right now, right? Sol hasn't really broken up incredibly strong. And if we look at the trends, right, this thing's very close to, again, this trend will help us identify when the pullback starts. Okay, for now, there's still slightly higher targets. The whole market, I think, could have a little bit more upside before it pushes down, okay? But Sol, for me, is a warning sign for new lows, right? And the big zones to pay attention to, and when I am really accumulating some long-term Solana positions, right, is here between the $54 and the $58 range, right? Even possibly 60 is a good price too. So I see a strong drop in Sol, a new low incoming, and then a strong bounce up to around the 70. And again, high time frame, I think it's looking really good. Okay, yes, it looks terrible to the downside, but I got to look at entries here. Right? If we see Bitcoin go to 40,000, then you are looking at a $30 to a $40 Solana. Okay, then let's look around a couple of the alts that I'm paying attention to. So again, I'm paying attention to a couple narratives. I'm paying attention to AI narratives, to RWA, real world asset narratives, right? And even DeFi as well, right? Slight DeFi, slight decentralized exchanges. This for me are possibly very good leaders in the next cycle to the upside, right? So a lot of these tokens are playing all different roles, like Injective, slight little bit in AI, right? Slight little bit in actual finance, right? I just want to show you guys here. Slight bit in DeFi, right? Slight bit in real world assets, right? So Injective is it's basically got small parts of everything. But for me, it's the correct narrative. So again, before we had this dump off, very strong push from Injective, right? And this is an altcoin that I really want to load up, right? This is a token, by the way, that has been areas of up to $50 before. We're sitting at $5, right? $5.7, right? Look at the bounce of the weekly, of the monthly, last month, and just look at the volume. Right? There is real interest here. There is volume backing the bounce. Right? So we must keep that in mind. Okay. As well as this candle can possibly turn green this month and have a strong push up to $10. Right? There's strength here and it's looking good. So therefore, when we get this little bit of nerviness and this possible secondary pullback, right, I'm using it as an opportunity. So this is where I see where I'm personally going to be loading up some Injective. I actually don't see this alt going much lower than where it went. And I'm buying here between the areas of 4.9 to the areas of 5.1. Right, so up to a 10-11% drop from here. There's even support sitting at 5.1. And then after that, I do see some strong strength. So Injective is one that I'm really, if I look at all the altcoins, there are a lot of great altcoins that I want. But I'm kind of looking at what are A grade, what are the ones that are really strong right now, can really still have a good year right now, and possibly lead the market. So even if Bitcoin just rallies back to 70 over the next 2-3 weeks, right, maybe the next month or two, right, we could actually see some of these altcoins break new highs and go. Right, the dominance is looking weak. Therefore, you will still see some altcoins rally to the upside. Okay, so if we look at this, Injective is one. The next one that I'm just looking for as long-term plays is Zcash. Right, look at Zcash. Right, had a lot of stuff happen to it last week. Big drop-off. Look at the buy-up. Right, really strong buy-up that came into play here. Okay, however, I do see this candle being bearish, and I do see downside. Okay, so for me, I'm going to be quite stingy with the Zcash entry. Okay. Even knowing that it's had a strong bounce, I am looking at the areas of $300 to $350, and I'm buying some for the long term. Right, it's making a massive high time frame flag. Okay, and if things do go well here and it continues the momentum that it has had, there is incredible volume, right, that has been put into this over the last year or two. Right, we could be seeing that $1,000 target. Now, yes, there are some concerns. Okay, which means I'm not going crazy into it, but for me, it is one of the blue chip plays that I'm paying attention to. Then Near Protocol. Okay, now Near, I do have things get bad, right? I'm going to keep a little bit of cash, 1.4, 1.5 Near. This would be kind of a big drop within Bitcoin, but I'm excited if that does happen. Near for me, AI space and specifically AI agent space, right? Agents, big play in the AI ecosystem. Okay, and for me, this has definitely shown strength, shown a crazy amount of volume, right? And this could be a token that really still rallies, even though we could see a range in Bitcoin over the next couple of weeks. Okay, so my two zones, the one is the higher low zone, and a place where I'm taking my first bets here is at close to this $1.9 range, right? Basically slightly higher than where we just bottomed out a day or two ago, right? If things get bad, then I'm looking at these areas. Yeah, but for me, this is one of the tokens I'm already placing bets here. High time frame, looking really good. Okay, and at any point, I'm looking for a rally up to the $4 to $5 mark, mid-range over here to this trend line here. Okay, then ONDO. So again, guys, these tokens and bets that I'm bringing you now are not just any tokens. I think they are tokens that can actually rally in a ranging market over the next couple of weeks, right? Specifically with that Bitcoin dominance looking weak. Next one is ONDO, right? Real world assets, right? Traditional finance inside of crypto. Okay, for me, that's a very big topic that a narrative that I want to play this year. So this is what I'm seeing on ONDO, right? Early 30 cents to 33 cents is where I'm looking for buys, right? These for me are tokens that I'm paying attention to on the next dip There are things like Render. I'm very bullish on Render, and I'm obviously still bullish on AVAX and these things, but I don't know if it's their time just yet. I think their time can come a little bit later in the cycle. So I think there's a little bit of time to possibly accumulate those. However, I think altcoins as a whole on the next pullback is a really good time to place some bets. And yes, have a little bit of a kitty in case we do think of a $40,000, which we're not promised just yet, but we do need to have it in the back of our mind. Now, a couple of things to just show you guys. We have a massive Trade Stars competition happening, guys. Okay, Trade Stars. So if we go here to the link here, why am I saying this is big? Go register here on the Sheldon link, right? And then join the banter table. Tomorrow, we are going to be trading against each other. It costs you nothing. You're going to be trading with demo funds, but the prize pool is $10,000 in a market that is bearish, right? Anyone, you know what's cool about this too? There's a time frame. Which means you're going to kind of be a little bit aggressive, and anyone can win. Anyone can win, right? Bring your TA, bring your knowledge, bring your vibes. We're going to sit around this table over here. It's called the Banter Cup, right? It's going to be, what, 4 hours? It's going to be around 4 hours time, okay? And we have $10,000 of prizes. Not just one person will win. I think they split it between the 5 people. 5 people, right? They split it between 5 people that will win. So let's have some fun. Costs you absolutely nothing. So again, what you got to do, sign up over here. Sign up on this link over here, and then join up the table. And then those that want possible VIP World Cup tickets, there's a 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 link below in the description to show you guys here. Right? Sign up and spin the wheel, and you can win VIP ticket. There's it over there, right over there. I see it. I see it. I see it. I see it. There's it spinning over there. And you guys can get a chance of that. Guys, lots of love. Smash up the like. Tell me what altcoins you want to see in tomorrow. So tomorrow we're doing a 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 show. I'm going to be charting up to 20 altcoins for you guys. So give me the altcoin. Give me altcoins in the description. And I'll see you guys in the comments below, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Lots of love. Bye-bye. Now you can do it.